Hello, this is the Growth League podcast. My name is Caleb Clark, and my mission for this show is pretty simple. It's to learn from marketers on how they're playing the great game of marketing leadership. Their ideas, experiences, perspective, wins and losses, and the playbook that they've established over time. Listen, there's more than one way to lead a marketing team and a marketing function. So if you're a VP, a CMO, director, or someone aspiring to fill one of these marketing leadership roles in the future, tune in to learn from some of the best in the business.
Well, the great thing is that a brand like the NFL already has a tremendous amount of strength. Right. So you're operating in a place of strength. Where we see the opportunity and where we've been empowered across the marketing department is to really lean in on finding ways to identify the next generation and engage with them on their terms.
Yeah. Ian, welcome to the show. Is Ian Trombetta, the Senior Vice President of Social and Influence Marketing. I'm not going to go through the lengthy tenure you have, but I'd like you to share.
I'm getting old, is what you're saying.
No,
it's great to be here.
I'd like you to share just a little bit about your journey as a marketing leader, and ultimately what brought you to today, the greatest brand in the world, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. It's been a really interesting journey. I mean, from CPG, not traditional CPG in the normal sense. Red Bull was a brand I started working with back in the very early 2000s. So I left Chiat Day, which is obviously a renowned agency, and started working with Red Bull as they launched in the United States for the first time. Yep. And that was a really formative time for me to understand how to build communities, especially in more niche and endemic scenes. And Red Bull, in terms of audience marketing, no one does it better. No. So it's been a number of years there. Kind of came back to Red Bull after a couple of years away, and 2010 to 2015, was head of brand marketing there, and that was also incredible because we were doing things on the product side as well as through the media house.
Right.
That really converged and sort of set the new template of what was possible for a brand from a content perspective, right. And at the same time, we had a flourishing business on the consumer packaging side of things. So in that sense, the two were fueling each other. I was involved with projects like Art of Flight and many, many others that really, I think, at least for me, showcase the potential for brands to jump out on platforms like YouTube in ways that hadn't been done before. One of the brands, though, one of the companies, as we were looking at these endemic scenes and trying to foster these communities, was Activision and Destiny, which is a fantastic game with a very, very passionate community as part of Bungie's world. And so we work with them on a couple of different integrations with Red Bull. That's where I met Tim Ellis, who's our CMO at the NFL, a really good friend of mine. And it kind of ended up where they were looking for someone to come in and run across franchises in a few different ways. And while I was really happy at Red Bull, video games and what was going on with entertainment as a whole, that seemed like the next frontier. Right. So I jumped in there and had a really strong couple years, actually 5 years there, and really enjoyed the time there. But Tim Ellis, and he mentioned to me over a lunch, and I'll share more tomorrow during my talk, but he said, hey, I'm going to be going to the NFL as a CMO. As a huge football fan, kind of living and breathing and obsessed with football, the immediate next question was, okay, when are we going to work together again? Which happened relatively soon thereafter, about 5-6 months after he started. I came on board and had the opportunity to build an all-new social team, which was both on the content side as well as on the platform side to reevaluate our strategy across platforms. Yeah. We also created an influencer marketing team and a creator team that did not exist before at the NFL, which really helps us engage with the next generation in really fun ways. And then we have a content marketing team that, I have to tell you, it's pretty astonishing when you see the amount of production, the quality of production, and just the variation of it that's happening every single week. Yeah. And then obviously on a year-round basis in partnership with our 32 teams.
It's amazing. Now, here's a question. You've established a playbook on how to build marketing systems and manage teams, empower teams at previous organizations. But in this scenario, with the new platforms, new user behavior, how do you leverage the things you've learned, but also embrace brand new frontier? And this is a pioneering scenario, channel side.
Well, the great thing is that a brand like the NFL already has a tremendous amount of strength. Right. So you're operating in a place of strength. Where we see the opportunity and where we've been empowered across the marketing department is to really lean in on finding ways to identify the next generation and engage with them on their terms. And that's something that, from the top down, from the commissioner down, he's really passionate about as well. And it allows us to innovate. And I take a lot of passion, and frankly, that's why I get out of bed in the morning, is to find what's next, to help identify what those opportunities could be. And I'm surrounded by terrific leaders, and my staff is just next level. So when you're surrounded by that energy and everyone really putting their hand in the pile with the same mission, it allows you to do things like the first ever virtual draft during the pandemic. It allows you to do things like the Toy Story broadcast or the Nickelodeon broadcast, or some of the things we're doing through social media and with creators now for the first time in YouTube and Sunday Ticket. So it's really, there's opportunity everywhere. You just have to know how to find it and unlock it. And unfortunately, we've been able to do that.
So how do you roll this type of stuff out with conviction and vigor, while at the same time not alienating legacy community and fan base?
So to your point, I mean, you astutely, bringing up some of the things we've learned from the other brands, Red Bull and Activision. What I would say the common thread is throughout very, very passionate communities for each one of those companies, and specifically with the brands underneath them. In Activision's case, with a game like Call of Duty is a really good example. Well, you've got players in there that are spending hundreds of hours.
It's their life. Exactly.
And that's their friendships and their bonding that they're
meaning. It's not a waste of time. It's meaning.
Exactly. And so when you have something that is that potent, you have to listen. You have to listen to what they're saying and understand what the nuances are between that discussion.
Right.
So for us, we never want to alienate our avid older fans.
Right.
And we have to understand where that line is. At the same time, not turning off. If we hear a little bit of grumbling, we can't turn it off. We just need to make sure that the channel selection and the distribution is the right one. And a great example of that would be how we program TikTok versus how we program X, or how we think about Snapchat as an example. Very different than some of the other platforms that we're running.
Channel specific, platform specific,
audience specific, the whole 9 yards.
You can't do this without a team, right?
Oh, we have a fantastic team. I mean, honestly, we have a best-in-class team.
So what has been? And there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat on this, but what's been your established sort of ways of developing team, empowering them, managing them? How do you facilitate or do a big part of your job, which is blocking, getting stuff out of the way for folks?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things I try to do, and I take a lot of pride in this, I really do. I talk to everyone. I've got friends of mine at the league, and they tease me at times because I'm literally talking to the intern, all the way up to the highest levels. And a big reason why I do that, oftentimes I hope that I'm offering some benefit to some of the younger people that are coming into the company for the first time, but they're also giving me a lot of insight in terms of how their user behavior is evolving, some of the new things they might be seeing come up, whether it be through our creator network or what they're seeing through social media and otherwise. It's really, really helpful for me. So when we do that, I feel like I have a pretty good sense, a pretty good finger on the pulse of what's happening in culture, and then I empower the team to run out. And if we have an incident or an opportunity, like Taylor Swift, I know that I've got a handful of Swifties on the team that can help inform how far we go, the type of tone we can take, and we're certainly not afraid to take some risk. And I think that goes, as part of it. And a big part of what I'm doing is to be a shield for the team. If we do take a risk and it ends up, going a little sideways, I think we can manage that internally and keep things moving in a direction that's going to allow us to do even more.
Right. I know you've probably been inundated with those Swift questions, so I won't spend long on this, but with something like that, and we use that as an example or other things, but when an organic moment happens, it's not engineered by the NFL.
Yeah.
What does the mobilization plan need to involve? Is it like communication at every level, or is it shoot and then
it's
figure it out after?
Yeah, so there is first of all, in terms of how we respond in those real-time moments, it's handled internally.
Okay.
So, and this is not a knock against agencies.
Yeah.
But in our case, where we're really moving very quickly, and to give you a sense of the scale of what we're talking about 1,500 posts a week.
Right.
So it's a lot of volume.
Yeah.
And underneath that, you need to have a very strong brand understanding.
Right.
Of what's in bounds and what's out of bounds.
Yeah.
And so our team internally is very well trained. We've got a lot of experience on the team. And then ultimately they're making recommendations up to me, and we're going through different scenarios of where we can go, how far we can go, and then ultimately we'll make the call. I know that if I have a question, and often I'll ring Tim. Yeah. I'll either text him or call him. And if I need to involve others, I'll certainly do that from like a business perspective. If there's an opportunity or a challenge we just need to be aware of. And there's very fluid communication. And one of the things I'm most proud of the work that we do at the NFL, there's no way that one department can operate without the support of all the other departments working together. And the communication, I think, is really, really strong. And I think the trust has also been tremendous.
That's awesome. Besides the fact, like myself, you are obsessed with the NFL and the game of football. Yeah, yes. Me too. I mean, we could spend 2 more hours on this.
I'm happy to.
Why do you care about your job? Why do you care about what you're working on, your mandate? What besides the shield is getting you out of bed? Honestly,
from a very, very young age, going back to how my grandparents entered this country, or into the United States, they entered as immigrants from Italy. They didn't speak a word of English. My grandpa worked in the steel mills in Pittsburgh. Very tough, lifestyle in terms of the work that he was doing in the steel mills, but it was a way of living.
Right.
And through that, as my dad was a first-generation Trombetta here in North America, he found football.
Right.
And he played football. And football brought that community together. All different races, people from all walks of life. Didn't have a lot, but it did bring the community together in a really powerful way. He went on to play high school with Mike Ditka, and Aliquippa, and then ultimately his college scholarship. And I guess a long-winded way of saying, ultimately, when you start to zoom out of what that experience was for my family and what football meant to them, ultimately that's true of millions of people.
It is.
And it's a unifier in a way that nothing else is in this country and in North America. And that's really powerful. And for me, the ability to have and work on a brand that really, at its best, is bringing people, regardless of race, regardless of politics, regardless of religion, together to enjoy on a Sunday afternoon or Monday night, whatever it may be, a game that they all can rally around and love. There's nothing better than that.
There isn't. And I could imagine you fully understand the weight of that responsibility.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I obsess over it.
Yeah.
And for me, I take it very, very personally in terms of how our fans are responding to what we're putting out from a content perspective, but also being an entry point for new fans.
Right.
Because at some point, just like my dad, there are going to be new fans that are looking for something to engage with, to find community.
Right.
And if we can open that door for them to find community within the NFL and within our amazing 32 teams and incredible players, again, that is as good as it gets.
It is.
And we're finding that now, that we're opening the door for more fans to come in, not only in the U.S., across age brackets and so forth, but globally as well, which is really, really exciting.
Yeah, the UK, Mexico,
Brazil,
else?
Australia,
Okay.
I mean, literally Germany. I mean,
That's right.
The game in Germany last year, to give you an example, in Munich, we had a million people try to buy tickets to the game in Munich. It sold out in less than 5 minutes. And to see Tom Brady, Tom Brady left that game on the field as they're singing John Denver songs. And he said, this might be the best regular season experience I've ever had in any NFL stadium.
As someone who's experienced everything.
20 years and multiple Super Bowls. It's Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And for him to say that shows you the vast potential of where we can go, both in terms of bringing games internationally, but also just the game itself from a content perspective, and these wonderful stories about our players. I mean, Kelsey is a really phenomenal example. That's the #1 documentary in Amazon's history.
It's amazing.
It's incredible. And that's a center.
He plays center.
He plays center, which, I mean, if you're to go back 20 years.
Well, but there's humanity behind the mask and the position. I think that's what people are starting to realize.
100%.
Kids, wife, pains.
100%. We call it, we refer to it as our helmets off strategy, and we put an enormous amount of emphasis on that across the league to ensure that we're telling the human stories of who the players are, in addition to the amazing physical abilities that they have. But when you can do that, when you can show the toughness and the physicality along with the vulnerability, it really does open up a powerful combination for the fan then to understand who these guys are on Sunday under the helmet, and then ultimately who they are as people. And we've got some phenomenal players who are even better people in the community.
That's amazing. I don't know if this happens for you, but it happens for a lot of marketing leaders and professionals. Sometimes different points of the day, different points of the quarter, but at some point, little voices start saying, you have no idea what you're doing this wrong, you're doing this, that, whatever. Do you have those types of things? And as a well-tenured marketing leader, what's your approach on blocking and pressing forward with conviction on the strategy that you're...
Yeah, I mean, certainly you go through those moments, and I think the pandemic was something where, as a live event business, there were a lot of questions as to, and also managing people through that, especially a lot of young people that didn't necessarily want to be back in the office and those types of things. But one thing's for sure, and I've definitely learned a lot in terms of leadership. Sometimes you need to take unpopular decisions to get to the right place.
Right.
And I think the NFL is a great example of that, of being really focused on delivering for our fans in a way that no other sports league can.
Yeah.
And as you do that, it really gets you through those moments where you are doubting yourself, where you are wondering, am I doing this the right way, or is there a better way to go here?
Right.
And we've had so many of those moments. I mean, if I just think about what's happened in the last 5 years, we've had a very contentious election. We had a pandemic that no one had seen in over 100 years.
Yep.
We had
BLM.
We had social justice uprising, which impacted everyone, including our players, in a very powerful way. We had a player nearly die on the field, and so you go through all these different experiences, and it gives you a sense of how to respond.
Right.
And one thing I will say is that the speed of action for a league is very important today, more important than it ever has been. And I've certainly learned that lesson. When things happen in the world, you need to be clear about what your values are, establish that, and then it allows you to continue the conversation.
Right.
If you pause and you're undecided, someone's going to tell that story for you, and it's not necessarily going to be a good one.
And then whatever you respond with is
after the fact. It's too late, and it's going to hype up, honestly, the division, and that's exactly where you don't want to be. So, we just had this terrible situation in Israel. We put out a statement that was really focused on terrorism and the innocent lives lost, regardless of which side. And that's important for us as a league to take that leadership position. And so we're clear on what our values are and where we stand on these global topics that are impacting so many people.
And it's your responsibility as a brand with as much power as you have, right?
Absolutely.
So this is, I have a bit of a difficulty wrapping my head around how you are able to do your job, because on one hand, it's the shield. It's dialed in, buttoned up, 32 well, I'm an owner, actually, of the Packers. But,
that's right. Okay, good.
But you have this sort of thing that is impenetrable in many ways.
Yeah.
But you're dealing in channels and with media and content forms and people that are variable and not predictable.
Yeah.
So how do you harness, or how do you fulfill your mandate, using yours and your team's mandate, while still being careful?
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack there, but I think the most important thing, and this is why I think the brand experience that I've had, in addition to working in technology and social media, has been really helpful, because understanding what the brand stands for and what your brand voice is, it really then unlocks a lot for you.
Right.
And if you don't understand that and people are running wild in all directions,
right.
I would be scared to death.
Right.
But I know that our team, especially the teams that have the ability and the green light to post and those types of things, we have a ton of security in place.
Right.
And a verification process in place.
Okay. So there's infrastructure that allows people to be creative and free, but...
Yes, but also ensure that we're doing the right thing. And for the league, it's interesting, when I look across the sports landscape, there is so much nuance to how we have to behave as the league versus any of our other partners and any other outlets out there.
Right.
And so while something might be very juicy and might be just gold from a content perspective in terms of views or engagement and so forth, we also have to remember, well, hey, did this player get hurt here?
Right.
Or, hey, was there a flag on this play?
Right.
Or, hey, is this going to make our players look bad in any way off the field?
Right. These humans, not players.
Exactly, exactly, and that's really what it comes down to is understanding all the nuances from a brand perspective of where we're at, with an incredible football IQ. That's really important too. That you understand, just like you, an avid fan. We've got to be on that same level, and if we're not, we're going to be missing some beats.
Is that a requirement to work?
In certain areas,
it's a nice to have.
In certain areas, it's a mandate, and we actually test that.
Oh man! Send me that test. I want to see just what a test this looks like.
We'll get you that test over. I'm sure you do pretty well. But that, for certain roles, that is a requirement, just because of the sensitivity of what we're dealing with, and then obviously many other roles, not an issue at all.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to ask you to be a little bit. You're a humble guy, so this might be tough for you, but I want you to explain what you interpret your superpower to be as a marketing leader. The thing that others would say about, man, you can count on Ian for this because it's every time, and something that you feel gives you a lot of confidence going into your day-to-day. It's my superpower. This is what I rely on heavily.
I mean, for me, I think it comes down to understanding the importance of community.
Okay.
And so I would say community, not only externally with how we engage with our fans, but also internally. Cultivating an environment where great teamwork will enable the best possible work. And throughout my career, I've been very fortunate to be surrounded by people who wanted to work on a team and wanted to share ideas. And when you have an opportunity like that to work with people that understand how to work within a team environment to build community, to me, that enables the best possible work. And that's been an underlying foundation of what I've been as a marketing leader.
How do you and your team facilitate integration of your ideas, strategies, plans across the other critical stakeholders or departments? So as compared to just presenting, here's what we're going to do, is there anything you're doing to create a sense of shared ownership or co-creation? Yeah,
quite a lot, actually. Not to pat myself on the back too much here, but when we started 5 years ago now, social media was something of an offshoot, and they weren't very well integrated with the broader business. Mm-hmm. And it was more so, if the sales department needed something, post this,
right.
Or if whatever the case may have been. There wasn't a lot of storytelling happening, those types of things. So in terms of the power of what we were able to, and what we have been showcasing of what's possible with player storytelling on and off the field, of what's possible through these social platforms from an engagement perspective, it's now, we are tied into literally every aspect of the business. Any aspect of the business that has a consumer-facing element, I can guarantee you we're part of that. So that's a big responsibility. It's been a huge sea change from where it was, especially on the social media side. But even things like influencers and including influencers and creative in our TV spots, including them with sponsors in ways that we hadn't before. It really has grown in all the right ways.
At the end of the day, what is your mandate? So when everything else falls to the cracks, what is at the end of the day the good news story that you have to be able to tell for your role and your team's function?
So for me, at my level, and I think this is probably true of many of the people here, it starts with brand health.
Okay.
And to me, when the NFL brand is in a healthy position, and I was just in Kansas City for kickoff this earlier this year, and it was really interesting for me to see how many people just had the NFL logo on. Yeah. And that was very, I think, telling in terms of how much the brand has continued to elevate. Right. Where fans want to just be associated with, not only with their favorite team, which is great, or their favorite player, but also the league itself.
That's really cool.
And so that brand health, then that unlocks all the opportunity for us to work with existing partners in new ways, help existing partners if they need support on different things. I think we can help lift them up to a degree, but also onboard new partners. Right. And that is super exciting. Whether it's on the social platform side, a partner like YouTube and Sunday Ticket, amazing. Amazon, Thursday Night Football, and Black Friday, incredible. Looking at what we're doing, across the social ecosystem, it's really that brand health enables so many other great things to happen. Totally. So if that's going astray, as a marketer, and as one of the brand leaders, that's something we all have to take a really hard look in the mirror and say, okay, how can we steer things back in another direction? Besides, and this will be my last question for you, but besides, you're speaking tomorrow, but is there anything that you come to events like this with intention on in terms of sharpening your sword, evolving? Like what is Ian 6 months from now? Caleb, if you're not absorbing and listening, I try to listen as much as I can at a conference like this. There are so many incredible leaders and creatives that are walking these halls. If you're not a sponge in this environment, and if we can all be sponges, then you're doing something wrong. And for me, it's really, it doesn't matter which brand. Mm-hmm. You can learn so much from a new startup brand or an established 100-year-old brand, and everything in between. So for me, I really enjoy these opportunities. I don't have the opportunity, just given how busy we are throughout the season, to do many of these types of conferences. So we try to be as selective as we can, but it is really special when you're able to see old friends and obviously meet many new friends. Yeah. Everyone, Ian Trombetta, thanks for sharing a bit of your journey, your playbook. There's not one way to do this game or play this game, but I think that very evidence that you've picked a path, convicted about it, and looking to evolve all the time. Appreciate your time. Caleb, thank you so much. It's been a